So we have folks that are on the computer and folks that are on the phone. And what we had talked about last time was being able to have a space for everyone to talk. So this is not going to be me presenting this time. This is going to be all of us kind of sharing. And I'm going to kick through this real quick. Because remember we had talked about this as kind of the maze that opportunity youth face right now. And that part of the work that we're trying to accomplish here is getting us to this, right, where we're working across systems to be able, with a student in the center, with a young person in the center, to be able to connect opportunities for that young person. So I really wanted to take today, the majority of today, to spend time talking about what you guys are doing in your communities. And I'd like to be able to open the phones to that. So for those folks that are on the computer, if you do have the ability to get on the phone, that would be great. If not, I think just typing in the chat box works as well, but I think it might work better if there's an ability for some folks to get on the phone as well. So I'm wondering if we can just kind of kick out a little bit. If there's anybody that wants to kind of get us started. We had spent time talking about how what opportunity youth at this point are facing this system right here. And I'm wondering if anybody wants to kind of talk a little bit about their context and what they were facing prior to this grant, to this opportunity, and what were the problems that they were trying to address in their community with the funds from DCO. And I see some folks typing, but if there's somebody that that's on the phone that wants to kick us off, what were some of the problems that you were trying to address in your community, or that you're still trying to address?
Well, hello, this is Tracy from Eastfield, McLean County.
Hi there.
Hi. I know that one of the issues that we're encountering in McLean County is that we have a very low unemployment rate, but we have a lot of young people, young adults who are still having difficulty connecting to employment opportunities, which is incredible because a lot of our business and industry partners are talking about how they have such a need to fill entry-level positions. And so through the coordinated efforts of this grant, and I guess just bringing awareness to the business and industry group, that there are programs out in our community that are available to help develop and meet their workforce needs. I think that really helped, just kind of highlight and expose some of our business and industry partners to the power that they really have in shaping and molding these programs that can really fine-tune and provide those specialized skills so that we can help fill their employment needs, because they just thought, oh, well, we just don't have the people. We need to look in other places in the state or in the country to fill those slots. And we're like, no, we have a workforce. We just need to get them to you, and we need to make sure that they're ready for you. So I think they really underestimated what was available in our community, because a lot of the young people that we've historically worked with are incredibly disconnected from work. They don't envision that they can go into places, that they don't belong in certain places to apply for job opportunities. And a lot of them are really great self-sustaining opportunities that they just would never consider that they were even, worthy or eligible to even apply for, and they can.
That's great. Are there particular organizations that you've been working with to kind of get us to that, to get your community to this kind of space right here?
So definitely. We have a really great partnership with Cintas, which is a uniform they're a manufacturer and a launderer. They just bought a company, so they're increasing their workforce by several thousand positions, and they're freaking out because they're like, the unemployment rate is like 4.2 here. So
you're like, well, let's talk
right.
about that.
So they're thinking of different ways that they can fill their workforce, and these positions are starting out, and it's not temporary work, at over $10 an hour with some really quick pathways to increase their earnings very quickly for people that show up and work hard and do a good job. And they offer full benefits packages. So Penny at Cintas, she's their hiring manager. She's actually been a pretty great champion for us. She's kind of helped grease the wheels with some of the other local employers because we've really engaged her in just helping us develop all of our work readiness programs because she was really excited about the possibilities, and she's hired several of our students. So even if you have background issues, which a lot of our students tend to have involvement with the justice system, she can still hire you at Cintas. You can have some of these charges or with a little bit of distance, between them, and still get a job at Cintas folding clothes. It's really good for those students that are intimidated or haven't quite built those customer service skills, so they can work independently, put their headphones in, and they can work all night long. So it's kind of a good segue. And then their drivers, they make really great money in the 50s and 60s thousands. So it gives them, there's some real growth there. And then Penny, of course, helped us establish that. Also, our municipalities, so the city of Bloomington and the town of Normal, they both have been really great champions for this program and our other youth build programs. They offer a paid internship program to our students that's outside of this grant, really any of our grants. It's just through arrangement, and they give our graduates an opportunity to work for 90 days, and they pay them $10.25 an hour to work along people in the town of Normal and parks and water treatment and in the offices and all different levels. And their goal is just to expose young people to the job opportunities that are available at the town of Normal, because they know that in the next 10 to 15 years they're probably going to completely flip their workforce because they're an aging population. So they're expecting that. So they want to start, planting some seeds with young people so that they can see that there are really great opportunities there. So we've had a lot of success, and I think when they have a little bit of success with us, then they kind of champion for us because they know that this is a population of young people that need some additional supports because they don't necessarily have those at home. They've really worked in spreading the word and getting other employers excited and open to considering what we're doing.
That's great. That's really great to hear. And my brother-in-law works for Cintas, so I can attest to the fact that it's a pretty cool company. Lots of, you're right, the quick pathways to move up in the company. That's great that you've got an employer champion that's really moving that stuff along. What about other folks? I mean, as we think about kind of this diagram, what are some of the challenges that you are trying to address in your communities, and how are you starting to address them?
Well, this is Val at Lewis & Clark. And,
hi, Val.
Hi. So, one of the things that we first wanted to just kind of get our system fully functioning that, and aligned so that it best supports youth, finishing and completing training. And then we have a youth build effort here, and so we wanted to expand some of that comprehensive nature to other pathways. So those are two of our challenges. And then we have good relationships with our workforce partners, but they weren't as, what's the word, kind of integrated as we would like. Because and so we were hoping to kind of get those relationships in even better shape and learn how to work together even more closely. And then finally, we have a goal to work with our justice-involved youth, actually incarcerated youth.
Okay.
And what we haven't figured out yet, but we're working on is how to make sure that once they go home, that we're able to still provide some supports or at least arrange those supports for them so that there's less likelihood of recidivism and getting involved in the same kind of muck that they were in when they left. So muck.
Yeah. It's a word. It's a word. I like it. So do you feel like you're making headway?
We're having great, I think, our working relationship with our partners, I think, is really, we're really making great strides there. And we're getting our systems in place, having more extensive on-ramps and then support along the way. we're getting there. We're not there, you know, we're still figuring that support along the way piece out. But yeah, we're making strides.
That's great. That is really great to hear. Who else wants to share? What are some of the challenges that you were like, okay, we have to address this, and this grant will help us get there?
This is Eileen from Methodist College, and you know, I think for us, I think our initial conversation started out with, you know, how do we address the great nursing shortage in our community, which I have determined is impossible in many respects. But you know, that's like our end goal. But this grant has really forced us to, I don't know, it's held us accountable for many conversations that have been happening of how do we get new students to Methodist College and then hired by Unity Point and in different types of healthcare professions besides and beyond nursing. And so this, you know, what better way than to jump into the deep end of the pool and get a big grant, right? And try to make it happen. And so for us, this really is a true pilot. While we enjoy a relationship with Unity Point Health because we are an affiliate, right? We're just all part of the family. Working together on this type of level to build apprenticeship opportunities and really create a career pathway within the healthcare system, this is forcing us to have other conversations about, well, what other jobs could we do apprenticeships with, and how can we replicate this, and how do we sustain it, and how do we look at benefit packages where there's tuition reimbursement, and you know, how can we do that better or differently. So this is just, we've kind of opened a Pandora's box as we think about apprenticeships and trying to realign or align ourselves with this new type of thinking. So from my perspective personally, sometimes I praise this grant and sometimes I curse this grant because it's been so difficult. Yeah, it's been so difficult in trying to get you know, everybody on the pulling in the right direction, and then, oh, what does it mean to have these students on our campus because they're a different caliber of academic level than what we're used to, and so what does it mean to support them and manage them, and how do, you know, it just keeps, Pandora's box just keeps opening and opening. So, you know, I think what's been good is lessons learned and trying to address some of these bigger issues of filling these healthcare positions in the community, but keeping it at a small scale so that we can learn how to do it, and so that we can replicate it in the future. So I think we're beginning to look at how can we address community needs by ramping up what we've learned from this grant.
That's great. That is really great. How about other folks? This is a great conversation. So Jamila Wilson on the chat box, and Jamila, if you have the opportunity to get on the phone, it would be great to have you because you mentioned the concept of homelessness. And this is something that I have been thinking more and more about, the kind of the basic needs of our opportunity students when we think about homelessness or even lack of food, and how do we get them to concentrate on their work when they are in insecure home and insecure food situations. And I'm curious if Jamila is able to speak to this, that'd be great to hear from her. But if anybody else is thinking about how they're addressing issues of how they're utilizing maybe this grant or utilizing these partnerships to think about how they address kind of the basic needs of some of their participants, that would be interesting to talk about.
Yes, I made it on the call.
Oh, hi, good.
Hi. So what we are encountering right now are a number of our opportunity youth that are struggling for stable housing, and this struggle is definitely causing some challenges with their participation in the program. A lot of what we're doing, because our program is a pretty intense 6-month, 37.5 hour a week experience. We see them every day, or the desire is to see them every day, but when the challenges of finding stable housing or the sort of couch surfing that's taking place, it impacts and impedes upon their desire to stay committed to the program. And so what we're encountering, and what's been a bit helpful, is that a number of agencies are aware of this challenge that we're experiencing through this program. So we've definitely engaged a number of different support services, and what we're coming to find is that there is a significant gap, particularly for young men, in providing housing for them. And so in Peoria, there does not seem to be a space or boarding house available for them to be able to rent a room, for a reasonable, affordable price, and be able to sort of secure that. And so we're right now navigating some of those challenges with some of our participants, with one of our participants in particular. But yeah. And we, maybe there are other circumstances where another young man was behind on rent significantly and had to miss a number of days to try and meet that obligation. So it's just a matter of connecting with a lot of the support services that already exist in the community, that unfortunately is already being tapped quite heavily by others, and so it's just a matter of kind of doing our best to lead them in the right direction, but more importantly to keep them motivated towards the larger outcome and goal.
Well, and I think this is a really tricky and I think yet honest conversation that we have to have, that our participants are facing multiple barriers and multiple hurdles. They got to the position they're in for a variety of reasons. And I'm just curious, Jamila, what are some resources that you think would be helpful in helping to support some of those needs for students? Are there particular agencies that you think would be helpful to get involved, or other partnerships that you'd like to make but you're maybe struggling to make them that would support students?
And the area that I was really sort of looking to for support but have not been able to, where they even have the resources to offer the support, is through our public housing authority department. But unfortunately, there is not an opportunity within there for young, for men, particularly and men that are coming out of the criminal justice system as well. So that, that additional barrier causes a lot of challenges. And it's really interesting to me because particularly the young men that we're encountering who have had experience with, law, with the criminal justice system, and have like probation officers and things like that, that they have access to a lot of support resources or services on paper, but as when it comes to sort of the execution of it or the outcomes of it, they begin to have these huge gaps. And so and that's a piece that I'm trying to figure out and trying to get some kind of answer or response to, is that they'll reach out to all these various organizations, but the outcome still is about the same, where they're still, struggling to find that the housing and secure housing and things like that. So I'm not sure. It's baffling me a bit, but we're going to keep sort of scratching at the surface and see what we can get.
Yeah, and I'll do some digging on my end too, because it strikes me that this is an area where the agencies could be particularly helpful in helping to connect resources. I mean, I think particularly if you think about the Department of Justice, there may be resources that we just don't know about, that we just haven't been able to tap into. So let me do a little digging on my end. What about other folks? What about other folks that are thinking about kind of the challenges that you were trying to address with this grant, and if you've been able to make any headway, or if you're still running into some stumbling blocks?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Hi, I can.
This is Jake with Manufacturing Renaissance.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, so we're working with in-school youth, and we're at Bowen High School in the south side of Chicago. And I would say some of the main challenges that we're facing is getting students through the online application and getting in the eligibility documents that they need.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
So, working with severely underprivileged youth, there's a number of reasons why. So most parents are not really willing or want to give up their, to give them their Social Security card and run to school with it, because it's not safe to go to school. There's lots of identity theft. I've also talked to folks who've had their parents steal their identity themselves, actually.
Yeah.
So getting documents like that, or getting a birth certificate, for instance, working with students in these situations is a lot more challenging than normal, I would say.
Yep.
Yes, 3 boys, 3 girls.
They're also very young, so they haven't really been asked to really bring this kind of stuff in before, and just raised a lot of questions. There's a lot of distrust for obvious reasons, amongst the students and their parents and their families. So that's been a challenge. The online application, I would say, is also very long, and there's some questions that are not really relevant for our program, that don't really matter, such as how willing are you to travel to a training program, how many weeks are you willing to do it. The students that we're recruiting are in a machining class that runs through the whole school year. So it's they're not going anywhere. They're going to be
they're
not
going anywhere.
And I would just say that the way that the questions are presented is a little insensitive. For instance, a kid growing up on south side of Chicago may not know that they live in a high poverty area, or what that even really means. Or if could ask them do they have a disability? Are they basically, are they dumb? Are you, and these types of questions, it's really hard for somebody to, it's just it's not, it's kind of tough for, we tell them to not even really, we almost want to answer the question for them rather than them having to answer that themselves. And tell them to kind of skip over it, because that's something we can find out, if their skills sufficient, if they have a learning disability. I mean, I've had a kid who was gone on it, and I can tell he can't really read the questions, and it's he doesn't know that. I don't think he was very aware that he maybe has a learning disability, but it's pretty apparent that he does. So, it's just, I think that the way this is built out isn't really specific towards a high schooler, and very conducive to one that's also very underprivileged.
No, I think that's really great insight, and something I'm going to bring back to DCEO. I was unaware that the online application was that cumbersome, and then it was that insensitive. And I think that that's something that potentially could be relatively, I hope, could be adjusted or fixed in such a way to respond to those needs. But I'm curious about your program itself. What are some of the challenges that you're trying to address with this particular program that you hope is going to, that you hope through this grant is going to come out of this? What some of the outcomes are going to be?
So a positive outcome for us is students enrolling in college.
Okay.
As quickly as possible. Please remain on the line. We'll be right with you.
What's going on?
Oh, dear.
What's going on?
Someone put us on hold. Hold on a second.
Oh, no.
Oh. Hey, guys, we'll get this taken care of really quickly. Okay, thank you.
Let's just talk on speakerphone. Can you guys hear me?
I can. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so positive outcomes for us. I mean, if a student enrolls in college, awesome. If they get a job, awesome. If they get a certification, that's great too. So those are all positive outcomes to us.
Okay.
Our program isn't saying like, this is manufacturing, you got to go into manufacturing and that's it. Like, we really want them to use manufacturing as a gateway and an opportunity to have stability and opportunity for them to pursue whichever career that they want to in the future. So, so there's obviously lots of different careers in manufacturing. There's human resources, there's finances. All these companies have lots of different areas. So for us, like, we're really focused on allowing students to really know their worth and their value and what skills and strengths that they have. We're ensuring that they have the professional skills to be able to present themselves and to sell their skills, to interview, to assimilate in the work culture of organizations that are probably going to be primarily white, not look like them. And our goal is to make sure that they have a plan as well, both that includes both short-term and long-term goals. So we're working with juniors and seniors. So we want to, get them help them build their skills, help them get some work experience, and work in manufacturing as a gateway to, further development and promotion in that field, or further development and promotion in other sectors of that field, and or using this program and these jobs as a way to get themselves through college and pay for that.
Yeah. Well, I'll be very curious to see how things go in the future. What is your current enrollment in this program?
So we have, I mean, it's hard to say. So, like, we probably have, 20, 25 that have, all their documents in that are required, but there's quite a few. Our target is to get 50 in the program. So, I mean, we have about 36, somewhere between 35 and 40 students who are in the system, and we're working on, collecting their documents and whatnot. But so far, we've kind of been able to check all the boxes for about 25 students.
Okay. So you've got about 50% of what your target participation is. Okay. So, I mean, I think one of the things that I'll do is I'll take some of this learning from you back to DCO and just see if there's work that can be done to support you specifically. And if there are other people that are struggling with the same thing, please, by all means, speak up. If there's issues of getting students documentation, if the system itself is so cumbersome that students are turned off by this, that is the exact opposite outcome of what any of us want. So I'm going to kick this back to DCO and say, there's got to be something we can do to fix that, because that's going to be antithetical to the kind of outcomes that we're hoping for with this grant and for our young people. So if there's anyone else that's struggling with that, please, by all means, let us know.
Yeah, and I just want to say one last thing. I really appreciate that. One last thing too is for the state, for you, is that with the application not being super youth-friendly, that the data that you're getting may not be as great as we want it to be. So like if we can work together to make it more accessible, more friendly, more respectful, you're going to get better data. We're going to get more students in the program. Everyone will work for everybody.
So I'm wondering, Jake, I might put you on the spot here a little bit. I'm wondering if you would be amenable to working with folks from DCO to help craft an application that is more youth-friendly, given that you're a practitioner and you're on the ground with young people, and you can actually talk specifically to examples of where you've seen that this creates disconnect or discordance with the actual applicants themselves. Would you be amenable to that, and that's something that we could kick out to the rest of the group then, and see if there's other insights? I think that would be really well received. That'd be really well received.
I mean, we want to see this program grow. We want to see other high schools get programs like this. That like most of the high schools are under-resourced. They're cutting programs. There's less opportunities. So we need things like this, and absolutely whatever we can do to help would be.
Okay, I will reflect that back to DCO, and you'll likely be getting a phone call because I think that's an important insight. I really do.
Yeah.
What about other folks? I'm curious about if there are particular challenges either with what you're doing right now, or if there's particular challenges that you were trying to address with the grant, and some shifts you've seen or some conversations you've seen that you've been able to have that maybe you weren't able to have in the past. I'm just curious to open it up to the rest of the group.
Hello, my name is Tanisha Carter. If I could interject for a moment.
Of course.
Agreeing with the prior gentleman, when it comes to the application process, the necessity for the paper application as well as the online application, a lot of it was a duplicate. Like, is there any way for us to be able to do away with or either minimize?
I will ask. Yeah, that's a great insight. Why are you providing the same information twice?
And also, when it comes to the other gentleman saying that the parents being hesitant to give identifying information out, we faced that. I know I faced it heavily. We initially tried to send out a letter along with the application with the students dealing with to give them things, and it goes in one ear and out the other. So I spent a lot of time wrangling students. I had to do a lot of going to homes and getting information. I actually had to take my students to the Driver's License Bureau and actually get IDs. And I actually had to go to homes and get the identifying information and actually take parents to go get Social Security cards. I had to actively...
Attention staff, there are pork chop sandwiches in construction if you're interested.
Excellent.
Again,
We all have pork chop
sandwiches in auto body.
It's all good. It's all good.
I had to actually physically go and do a lot of these things because initially I assumed, again, like most adults do, we assume that if we give a youth and that they will handle it accordingly. Of course, I was mistaken in that assumption. So I had to actively go and kind of hold their hand to do, getting the physical documentation, to the IDs, the socials, and then when we got a few students who were of Hispanic ancestry, we had to deal with, on their socials they had the verbiage only for work. So then in turn we had to get additional information like a birth certificate that really wasn't told to us in the beginning. As long as we had a Social Security card and an ID, that was all what was needed. So through this growing process, we were constantly finding out new things. Barriers were being put in place on us as far as the paperwork went, to finally be able to get our students
to be at this final stage. Right now, I have them as registrants now, but it was hard and a long road to get there. And then now at this ending road, because our students are youth and have no work experience, we have MOUs set up with a few businesses and things of that nature, but then they're a healthcare pathway coordinator. A lot of it comes to dealing with HIPAA and confidentiality, and then being less inclined to want to have our students in certain areas. But they need to have a clinical base and a clinical understanding of the actual work-based learning and things like that as far as the internships. Now, about 75% of our internships are paid, luckily enough, but that other 25% aren't. So then I have to decide what students should I put in an internship that is unpaid, yet beneficial to them as far as the marketability and what they can do as far as the resume, but when they look at their fellow classmates, they're not getting paid, so then I have to do that tangent of, okay, well, how do I explain to them that what the value added is the experience versus the economical.
Yeah.
Employers wanting to employ youth, especially because mine is in the medical arena, and them willing to take a chance. But we have, thankfully enough, 2 major hospitals who are willing to, CDE, definitely, she's, forerunner in making sure that our students have access to employability, even if, she's definitely told me here that if our students are 18 and to go ahead and apply, and we'll definitely prioritize hiring them because she's definitely aware of the imbalance and the gaps that we have in our community. And, but then there's certain other employers who, the problem that we have with them is that with the major hospitals, they're open 24 hours a day, but the businesses, they're only 9 to 5, and our students are student work.
They're in school,
Do internships that only where their students only there 1 or 2 hours because they're really not going to learn much. So a lot of my internships have been pushed to summer internships.
Oh.
So, I have to deal with that. And then, again, I have to do case notes and things like that over the internship process. But, again, I do work for District 150, just like the other gentleman before. He works for a school district, and I'm not working during the summer. So I, in turn, have to think about how I should go about stay connected and aware of the ongoing things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So
are there particular, particularly in Peoria, are there particular agencies, I'm thinking like, is it CareerLink? Are there particular agencies that you could work with that could help
CareerLink right now, we are working with them. They did the paper portion for us. But as far as getting the documentation, they actually just gave me the application and told me that I needed to get it from the students. What they did is they did the entering of certain things earlier, that when you did the online application, it was kind of a regurgitation of what was already given to them by paper.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the reason why I wanted to know, could we do away with some of the paperwork
if strikes me as super inefficient.
I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but kind of that's what,
Well, no, that's part of the rationale for this community of practice, honestly, because I think it's really difficult to sometimes know. And sometimes I have found that systems get layered on top of systems, and you end up with duplicate functions because people don't realize what's actually happening. So I think that's an important insight, as well as the insight that applications are not very youth-friendly. If the youth are filling them out and they're required to answer some of these questions, they should be youth-friendly. It should be an application that a young person can see themselves in. So I think that's a super important
insight. As far
as
their articulation level and things like that, not the greatest for a few, especially depending upon, there are or where they are academically.
Yeah.
As far as whether or not a student has a disability, unfortunately, I have the ability to see if they have an IEP or a plan like that already, via the system. So those are things that I'm aware of. But that gentleman, as he explained, you know, it was obvious to him because of, I don't know, didn't understand the terminology. So, I mean, those are sometimes easier to where maybe he did want to click an extra barrier that maybe out of embarrassment.
Yeah, no. I think that's super fair. I'm curious about this issue of the. I mean, you're employed by the school district, and you're not there in the summer. And how do we help support the work of the Peoria is doing to help those students stay connected to an adult who's aware of what's going on during the summertime program?
I kind of address that here administratively, and we have 2 administrators that are here during the summer, and
okay, great.
So they're going to be aware, but
okay.
But there's only so much that they're going to be aware of. They're going to be aware of, I guess, when things occur. I guess maybe they'll keep,
but more like a day-to-day management.
Right.
You know, but that's on their own.
That's only off the basis of when. I'm assuming when negative things occur, but I also want to know about the good things.
Yeah.
So, you know, the successes of whatever in the program. And where I feel like there's going to be a little bit of a disconnect because I'll probably know about whatever negative happens, these emergent things, but the positives, the successes, those are the things that I want to also enter into the case.
Shit. It's a wondering for me. In Peoria in particular, it's a wondering, but also across the state. If you've had an opportunity to connect with the Greater Peoria EDC, and if there's a way for them to partner with you in this work so that there could be some support mechanisms in place for students during the summer, or even just to help kind of connect the dots. I mean, the Greater Peoria EDC helps to run Peoria Pathways, and that's connected to District 150, and I kind of wonder if there are multiple players in the same community, and this is my wondering in all of your communities, is that if there are multiple players in the same community that are in some cases serving the same population, you're just kind of talking past each other, and if there's any way that either myself or Aaron Steva, who I think is also on the phone, or other folks can help facilitate some of that connectivity. Mm-hmm. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there. I'm curious if there's been any conversations with the Greater Peoria EDC at all, and if that's something that we could help facilitate.
I believe that there is currently, but I think that's something I probably need to look further into.
Okay.
As far as, you know, me wanting to know the successes or whatever else.
Yeah.
But thankfully enough, on my end, I have it covered for the summer as far as if anything emergent happens. So I guess the successes, maybe I could, you know, probably add that or have the.
Why don't I try to connect you? Why don't I try to maybe even just do like a little connection on with the folks at the Greater Peoria EDC. I work with them all the time, and that could be. I mean, even just to share and collaborate on a somewhat regular basis, that could be a really powerful connection. Because you're serving the same school district.
Right, because I believe we do. But
okay,
what would be that individual that?
It would be Kate Cundiff and Brent Baker.
Okay, we are connected with Brent.
Okay, you're connected with Brent. Good. Because, I mean, he could be a really good resource. He could be a really good resource for kind of helping to capture some of that information. You know,
yeah,
that might be
I realized that at the time. Now.
Yeah.
Okay. So other than that, that's about it for me.
Okay. Well, that's super. I mean, it's super helpful. I think even just thinking about how to. I mean, just your comment about how to minimize some of the cumbersome load from an administrative perspective of the application. I think that's an insight that's very, very helpful, and one that I'll bring back. I want to give another opportunity for anyone else that wants to share kind of how they're making some connections across their beautiful circle that we're trying to create around young people. Are there particular challenges that you were trying to address with this grant, and maybe other particular things that you've been able, conversations you've been able to have, or insights you've been able to have over the past few months that you want to bring up?
Hi, this is Laura with Phalanx Family Services. The initial challenges that we were having was really more on the technical side with the connection with iWiz and the Illinois WorkNet, making sure that that information mirrored. My staff was actually working very closely with Jim Potts, who was very helpful in helping her to navigate both those systems and getting everything to match. In terms of our progress, we have 12 enrolled of our 15, so we're doing very well in that regard. We have been able to partner with one of the churches in our areas for a workspace to build some of our housing units for the construction program. So as a result of this grant, we were able to establish that partnership where they allowed us to utilize space for our young people to actually build their first model house. So it was really phenomenal. That was not a partnership we had on the onset of this. So as a result of this grant, we made that new partnership. But our other challenges, just speaking to what some of the other people have mentioned, the onset was, again, getting those documentations that was necessary to meet eligibility requirement. There was a lot of hands-on with my case manager to ensure that that happened, and really having some conversation with parents to ensure that information being received was necessary for the program, but that it was also confidential. So I do agree that a lot of the information maybe that's being requested probably not very youth-friendly, in that they don't know maybe how to communicate that well to their parents.
Sure.
And so fortunately, our case manager was able to provide the necessary feedback to the parents just to assure them, what that information was needed and how it's kept in a confidentiality state. So that's just our feedback.
No, I think that's super helpful. I think that's really helpful. And I have to tell you, it's very exciting to me that you were able to create a new partnership and be able to give the young people in your program a workspace at the local church. I think that's an excellent partnership, and that's part of the rationale behind this work, is making connections across that circle. And that's a community member, potentially super underutilized community member, much like public libraries and things of that nature, that I think if we were able to really think about how we fill the needs of our young people, it doesn't have to be terribly complicated.
Right.
So I wanted to take a few minutes just to give you a little bit of update. I was hoping that Lisa Jones from DCO would be able to join us, but I've not yet heard from her. So DCO is in the process of working with some of us who were part of the original kind of disadvantaged youth task force to think about how we reissue the next round of the NOFO, of the opportunity that all of you are recipients of at this point. They're looking at reissuing that probably by the beginning of February, somewhere in the early part of the first quarter of next year. And I've got some insights from you now already, but I'm curious, and this is not something you have to answer right now, but if that's something that you want to email me even on, is what are some of the insights that you have about the application itself? I know that it was very long and it was very big, and we're trying to simplify the application and try to make it more streamlined and more friendly to organizations that are that for whom some of these enormous federal grants are maybe not necessarily bread and butter. So I'm curious if there are any insights off the top of your heads of things that you would be looking for or you would be hoping for in a new round of applications, things that you'd hope to try to fund that maybe weren't able to be funded in the last round.
Well, for Phalanx, one of the challenges that we have, Phalanx also has other Illinois Department of Human Services grants. And so the new system, the new NOFO and your application process, that was initially very difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
Because it was very new, and because we have multiple contracts with the state, it was very confusing. And going in and determining what was necessary for what program. We're a little bit more proficient in that, and hopefully the next NOFO would be a little simpler in that we've gone through the process at least once. But I will definitely want to, like my grant writer, ask her what challenges that maybe she had in inputting information. I think we had to do a budget more than once in terms of how we are submitting that. And so I think there were just more technical issues for us because maybe the system was just very, very new. And so
it was very new, and I think that everyone's openly admitting that this was not only a pilot for youth career pathways and apprenticeships, but it was a pilot for the actual application itself, the actual NOFO. It all kind of happened at once, which was not the original plan. So I think that that's something. I think hopefully we'll get some of the technical issues ironed out, but I think that it's really good insight. Are there particular things, and this is to kick it to the whole group, that that you would like to see money allocated to fund that maybe wasn't allocated in the original round, maybe around building partnerships or system development? Are there particular things that you'd be looking for that would make this more enticing of an opportunity?
I'd like to have an opportunity to provide that in an email to really
please, of course.
To it. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I will kick it all to you in an email as well. I'll shoot that question out to you in an email, and then people can take their time and thoughtfully respond. And it doesn't have to be right this very second. I just thought if there's something burning on the top of your heads, if anyone's like, yes, I've been sitting on this for 6 months and I want to say it, by all means.
This is Michael Kuhn from Peoria Public Schools. I think one of the issues that we had early on is that when we applied for the grant, we didn't know all the particulars on the steps that needed to take place. And I think one of the issues that we have, it's not really a funding issue, it's a calendar issue, where if we're working with high school students, we're on a different calendar than anybody else. So like an August to June calendar. So like, for example, this is an 18-month grant, and it would be more beneficial if it was a 2-year grant instead of an 18-month grant. So I think the calendar issue kind of affects school districts. And also, one of the issues that we have is that we're working with, under 18-year-old youth, that we have some different barriers as far as, whether it's getting employment, getting in internships, assistance with, really developing a co-op ahead of time. That would have been beneficial because we were very fortunate. We had some MOUs that they signed when we got this grant, but then when we went back to those MOUs, they're like, well, we can't really do what we promised we were going to do.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
So I think we've learned a lot within really the last 8 months. And I think we would probably go at this a little differently. I think even the hiring of our career coordinators, sometimes they really didn't know what they were expected either because we didn't know because we didn't know about the grant. As we were going along, it was like, well, you guys required this, you required this, and like I said, and it's just, I think all of us probably face that same issue, and it's a learning curve where now we know a lot more than we did, and we would do things a lot differently, especially in a school setting. As far as we had existing students in these programs, but we didn't realize there was a low income barrier for some of these students. So, and it's okay because that's really who we should be sponsoring, but when we provided initial numbers, that didn't reflect that was one of the requirements. So
Oh, okay.
you see where I'm going with it? So I mean, our
Yeah.
numbers. I mean, and we look at our numbers a little differently now that we've been through the process. So
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah, and it's all working, and I think that our data is going to be great for everyone. We do things a little differently because we're part of a school district. As far as we're dealing with students under the age of 18, so it's going to be great data, but there's also going to be different data than everyone else on this page.
Sure, makes sense. Are there any other insights about the application that anyone wants to share on our call?
This is Jake again with Manufacturing Renaissance. Hold on one second. Sorry. I'm in a room and some students just came in. But so I would say, like, with the application, what would make it or better for serving in-school youth, if we could, and I think this is how it was previously done, actually, is that we sit down with an applicant and we kind of have like a one-on-one conversation with them. We get to know them, ask them about school, how they're going. And then through that interview, I can just fill that application out. I can type up what their goals are. I can type up if they have IEP, if they have if they are homeless, if they are all those things. I could put in the application. I think that would be a much smoother process because I've been trying to we've been getting all the kids to do this application on their own, and it's we have to walk through with them anyway, so we might as well just sit down one-on-one and go through every step and actually do that part, answer the questions on our end. So it's
sure. So the current system doesn't allow you to do that?
Well, I guess technically you could do it that way, but it's not supposed to be like that. The instructions are send this to the student, let them fill it out.
Okay. All right, so creating some clarity around whether or not you as the adult that's in charge of this program can actually do that. All right, that's important insight. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time at 12 o'clock.
We're going to do it.
But if
there it is. Okay.
Is there anyone else that wants to share some insights? I'm going to send this out in an email as well because I think that you're all you have a lot to share about how we can strengthen an application going forward that's much more user-friendly, practitioner user-friendly, and student user-friendly. So are there any other insights at this point that anyone wants to share for the group? Okay, I will go ahead and kick this out in an email. And I just want to say thank you for embracing this kind of ragtag idea of a community of practice today that's just open session and open conversation. I have about 6 pages of notes. I was furiously writing. I think that there's a lot of insights that we can share across this space, and that's what this community of practice is really meant to do. So I wish everyone a really happy holiday season and enjoy time with your family and friends, and we will connect with each other in the new year. Thanks, everybody.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.